When I was 17, Sebastian and I realized that we were living in a sweet romance novel. He was the male protagonist in the book, while I was merely a background character. Sebastian, furious, tore the book apart and said to me, "I don't care about being the main character. I will never love anyone else." At 22, just as the book predicted, I was going abroad. Sebastian patted my head and promised, "When you come back, we'll get married." At 27, I returned home. This time, it was to attend Sebastian's wedding with the female lead. Chapter 1. There was 1 hour left before the reception started. I stood in the hotel lobby, staring blankly at the names on the welcome sign. Groom, Sebastian. Bride, Julia. It felt as if I was back to when I was 17. I had pulled an anonymous book from the corner of the library, only to see the words on the cover. Male protagonist, Sebastian. Female protagonist, Julia. Like receiving Pandora's box. I was torn, afraid to peek inside. "What are you looking at?" 17-year-old Sebastian suddenly appeared. He leaned over from behind, resting his head lightly on my shoulder. "Who's the idiot writing a novel using my name?" He snatched the book, glancing through it while cursing. "What kind of stupid name is Julia? The person I like is called Autumn." "Autumn? Where's my Autumn?" He flipped through the book, and the more he read, the quieter he became, until his face turned pale. The book told the story of 22-year-old Sebastian, the male protagonist, and his romantic love story with the female lead. Everything in the book, except for the future parts, perfectly matched reality. As for his Autumn, she was merely a background character who appeared in his memories. "I don't care about being the main character. I will never love anyone else." Sebastian's eyes turned red with anger, and his hands shook as he tore the book apart. "Autumn, don't believe this. That person will never be me." I didn't say anything. 17-year-old Sebastian hugged me, sobbing in frustration. "I hate summer. Autumn. I will hate summer forever from now on." The boy's sobs gradually faded into the noise around me. I snapped back to reality, realizing the sunlight had crept up onto my shoulder. Following the ray of light, I looked out the window, suddenly aware. It's summer now. Chapter 2. A wedding in the middle of summer. It's unbearably hot. An older woman wiped the sweat from her brow as she entered the hotel, complaining to her companion. "Did you check the calendar? Today's not even an auspicious day. What's the Sue family thinking? Sebastian's just in a rush to get married. I heard he proposed 5 times before the girl finally said yes." Her companion, brimming with gossip, continued proudly. "The Sue family has been planning this wedding for years. So once the bride gave the nod, they pulled it together in just 7 days. Wow. Does Sebastian really like that Julia girl that much?" The older woman's voice faded with her footsteps. I couldn't help but recall, how much did the Sebastian in the book love Julia? He loved her so much that after knowing her for just 6 months, he secretly started preparing for their wedding. He loved her so much that despite their mutual affection, he took cautious steps for 5 years before finally entering her world. Even though he was never the patient type, usually bold and reckless, he loved her so much that he completely forgot. At 17, he had picked up a corner of the torn book. On the blank part, he immaturely wrote, "In the name of Sebastian, I warn every storyteller, first, Sebastian will not be the male lead. Second, the person Sebastian likes has only one name, Autumn. Third, no matter the circumstances, Sebastian will forever and always only love Autumn." "Mom, what does it say here?" A little girl stood in front of the wedding sign, pointing to a line of text. Following her gaze, I finally noticed the words written there. "With this grand ceremony, we invite you to witness our lifelong commitment. Sebastian, Julia." Chapter 3. 15 minutes had already passed. I was still standing at the door, too hesitant to take that step forward. "Autumn." A familiar voice suddenly called out behind me. I had barely turned my head when my arm was grabbed in a rush. "It's really you, Autumn. You've finally come back." I was pulled into a delicate, fragrant embrace, and a silent sob reached my ear. A bitter taste rose in my throat as I struggled to open my mouth. "Aunt Sue." Aunt Sue choked back another sob and quickly covered her mouth. It's me who let you down. It was after our college entrance exams. On Sebastian's 18th birthday, he invited me to his house under the pretense of celebrating. As soon as we stepped inside, we ran into his mother. Mom, let me introduce you. This is your future daughter-in-law, Autumn. Sebastian confidently wrapped an arm around my shoulder, proudly showing me off. Autumn, this is our mom, your future MO. I stood on my tiptoes to cover his mouth. Just as Aunt Sue flicked his forehead, in Sebastian's yelp of pain, we both froze for a moment before bursting into laughter. That was my first time meeting Aunt Sue. It set the tone for every interaction that followed. Sebastian causing mischief, me holding him back, and Aunt Sue cleaning up the mess. In the end, we were always laughing. On my 20th birthday, Aunt Sue gave me the Sue family's heirloom jade bracelet. She made a solemn promise. Autumn, if Sebastian ever lets you down, I'll kick him out of this house. I won't have a son like that anymore. Now, Aunt Sue was apologizing to me. I hugged her back, raising my hand to gently pat her shoulder. All I could say was, Auntie, it's not your fault. Chapter 4. Aunt Sue was the first to release me. Autumn, this isn't the place to catch up. She quickly wiped her eyes and regained the composure of a proper host. It's hot outside. Come inside and sit down. I lowered my head as she took my hand, leading me unguarded into the banquet hall. We had barely walked a few steps when Aunt Sue suddenly stopped, her voice filled with tension. Autumn, don't misunderstand. Confused. I looked up and saw the wedding decorations, golden wheat and sunflowers, surrounded by autumnal blooms, created a romantic countryside scene. Scarecrows stood on either side. Rustic baskets of fruits and vegetables were on display, and a crescent moon hung over the stage. It looked like a Van Gogh painting. It was as if I had walked from summer straight into autumn. My breath caught in my throat. Autumn, please don't misunderstand. The wedding is rushed. And this setup was one Sebastian designed years ago. We just didn't have time to change it. I gripped Aunt Sue's hand tightly, cutting her off abruptly. Auntie, where is Sebastian right now? Autumn. I stared at the tip of the crescent moon on the stage, where an unexpected stalk of wheat stood tall. Maybe a grain of wheat slipped from God's palm, and the wind carried it here? With a heart full of misplaced hope, I stubbornly asked again, Auntie, where is Sebastian right now? Aunt Sue fell silent. After a long pause, she sighed. He's with Julia, taking wedding photos. They're in room 1019. I turned and ran out without hesitation. As the bustling scenery blurred by, I was struck by an odd illusion. 17-year-old Sebastian was waiting for me. Chapter 5. But in truth, everything between Sebastian and me began when I was 16. It was the first day of our junior year after we had been reassigned to new classes. I arrived early, planning to sit at the front of the room. As usual, the scent of osmanthus suddenly filled the air. As if guiding me, I veered off course and chose a seat in the back row near the window, closer to the osmanthus tree outside. The classroom grew noisier, but I was buried in my books until I heard a loud noise beside me. Sebastian had slammed his bag onto the desk. He was wearing a white shirt, standing tall as he looked down at me, eyebrows raised casually. Hey, classmate, what's your name? His expression and tone were casual, but I sensed a trace of hostility. I glanced at him, bewildered. Autumn. Sebastian let out a mocking laugh. I asked for your name, not the season. I lowered my head, ignoring him. My first impression of him was that he was uncultured. During the introductions, I said from the podium, my name is Autumn. He lounged in his chair, seemingly unbothered. Oh, he drawled, as if something had just clicked. As I walked back to my seat, he suddenly extended his hand toward me. Nice to meet you, he said with a smile, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Weak classmate. I tripped over my chair leg. It was at that moment I realized, with great regret, I was now seatmates with someone with no culture at all. Chapter 06. It was later that I found out. Turns out, Sebastian was the notorious school bully at No. 1 high school. The seat by the window in the back row was unofficially his, and I had stolen it. When Sebastian asked for my name, what he was really implying was, classmate, how dare you take my seat? I thought it was so childish. Maybe it was because my parents worked overseas for most of the time, and I had been living alone since my freshman year. I had matured earlier than my peers and was distant by nature, with no friends. I was terrible at dealing with people like Sebastian. He would casually say things like, "Wait, can I borrow your homework?" Or after finishing a basketball game, he would weave through the crowd and naturally approach me, pointing at the unopened bottle of water in my hand. "Wait, can I have some of your water? You don't mind, right?" His tone was casual, but not intrusive. On the contrary, it felt like he was really close to you. I quietly summed up this quality of his in my mind as bad boy charm. One day, I saw him reject a bottle of water from a girl on the playground. His reason was, "Sorry, I don't accept gifts from girls. Don't want to cause any misunderstandings." The girl was not convinced. "But you accepted the water from your desk mate." "That's because I asked to borrow it." Sebastian tilted his head slightly and smiled as he added, "Besides, there's no misunderstanding between us." "What does that mean?" I stood frozen a few steps away, my mind completely blank for the first time in my life. But Sebastian saw me at that very moment, his smile widening to reach his eyes. He walked over slowly, step by step. "Wait, are you thinking right now that Sebastian seems to treat you a little differently?" He bent down slightly, hands on his knees, and leaned closer to my eyes. "Don't think about it anymore." His face glowed in the backlight as he said, "Wait, you are special." Chapter 07. I rushed into the elevator like a madwoman and pressed the button for the 10th floor. As the elevator ascended slowly, the memories flooded in. I saw 16-year-old Sebastian, lazily leaning against the classroom window. He tilted his head and asked with a smile, "Wait, can't you tell that I'm pursuing you?" The elevator reached the 3rd floor. I saw 17-year-old Sebastian whispering in my ear during a Chinese class. As the teacher explained classical idioms, he leaned in close to ask me, "Wait, do you know how to explain the phrase 'love the house and its crow'?" Before I could answer, he handed me a note that said, "Love the house and its crow means because I like wheat. I also love every grain of wheat she bears," with no real knowledge. 17-year-old Sebastian had written the most beautiful love note in the world. The elevator reached the 6th floor. I saw 22-year-old Sebastian at the busy airport. He gently embraced me and stroked my head as he promised, "When you come back, we'll get married." The elevator reached the 9th floor. All the images froze on that one day. After finishing a book together, Sebastian and I left the library. I can't stand it. The more I think about it, the angrier I get. Sebastian pulled me to the corner, grabbed my face, and gritted his teeth as he demanded, "Autumn, how could you be so heartless?" I stared at him, dumbfounded, as he delivered his grievance. "How could you be just a bystander? If I lost my mind and ended up with another woman, how could you just stand by and do nothing?" He bit my chin, not too hard, but enough to threaten. "I forbid you from being a bystander. You have to be the villain. The one who crashes the wedding. The one who comes and steals me away. Promise me, no matter what, you'll come and get the messed up version of me, okay?" I wanted to laugh at his silliness, but when I saw the panic in his eyes, I softened. "All right, I promise you, even if I have to go against the whole world, I'll come and get you." To lighten the mood, I joked, "Just give me a signal when the time comes. How about smashing a glass?" "No smashing glasses." Sebastian rubbed his face against mine and said, "I'll put a piece of wheat on the moon." "Autumn, your name is our signal." With a ding, the memories shattered into pieces. I returned to reality. The elevator had reached the 10th floor. Chapter 8. The hands of time turned back to the present. Suddenly, I couldn't bring myself to step through that door, until I heard a familiar voice in the hallway, with that casual tone and a light laugh. "Come on, guys. Have a heart. I just want to take a picture of my bride." "That's not a crime, is it?" In that instant, I felt my soul leave me. Sebastian, when he used to get injured playing basketball, would use the pity card and say, "Autumn, have a heart. Help me put on a band-aid." When Sebastian didn't want to let me go, he'd pout and say, "Autumn, my Autumn, Have a heart. Don't leave me alone. Who told you to make Julia look so bad in the picture? This is your punishment. The laughter of the groomsmen and bridesmaids echoed through the door, filling the hallway. Let us take enough pictures first. Then you can come in. Groom, for now. Wait outside. Dazed, I walked out. The lights were dim, and I immediately saw him, standing not far away, locked outside the room. He was dressed in a sharp suit, leaning against the door, shaking his head with a helpless smile. I stared at him. Sebastian seemed to sense something and turned his head across just a few meters, but separated by 5 long years. Our eyes met. Just once. Just with one look. And suddenly, I realized with absolute clarity, he was no longer my Sebastian. Chapter 9. From 17 to 22. Sebastian and I were together from school to graduation. We met each other's parents, lived together for 2 years, and were only inches away from getting married. The night before I left the country, Sebastian was already planning our wedding. But then, my father, who was abroad, suddenly had a life-threatening accident. We didn't have time to say a proper goodbye, and we parted hastily at the airport. The last thing Sebastian said to me was, "When you come back, we'll get married." I never expected that this would be the beginning of us losing contact completely. I tried to return, but every flight I took got cancelled. Every car broke down, and when I tried to walk, I would faint. Everything in my world seemed normal, but whenever I tried to find Sebastian, my surroundings would suddenly turn into a deserted island. It was as if the universe itself was stopping me. From 22 to 27, between Sebastian and me, there was nothing but emptiness, until yesterday, when I suddenly received the first message from Sebastian in 5 years. "I'm getting married. Will you come back?" I came back. After crossing 5 years of mountains and oceans, I arrived, unrecognizable, before this unfamiliar Sebastian. He couldn't even bring himself to look me in the eyes. Autumn. His voice, distant as if it came from another world. And he said, "I'm sorry, you're too late." Chapter 10. There were only 30 minutes left before the wedding started. It seemed like I was way too late. I didn't know how I managed to smile. But somehow, a laugh escaped my lips. "I'm not late at all. Just in time to congratulate you." Sebastian froze. His words stuck in his throat. Suddenly, I found myself unusually talkative. "It's me who should apologize. I can't believe I forgot to bring a gift." "Oh, right. There's a bracelet. There's a bracelet that's meant for Sue family's daughter-in-law. I can't wear it anymore, so I'll give it back to you." I lowered my head and began rummaging through my bag for the jade bracelet, only to realize I had nothing on me. My bag. Where is it? Where did it go? Panic surged through me as I searched around frantically, my eyes almost sweating from the urgency. I've been carrying it with me all along. How could it be missing? It must be here somewhere. Just as I was about to check the trash bin in the hallway, Sebastian grabbed my hand. "Autumn." It felt like an electric shock, and I instinctively shook his hand off with force. Now it was my turn to avoid looking at his face. I took 2 steps back, hurriedly. "It must be in the hotel. I'll go look for it." I turned around and stumbled off, running blindly. "Autumn!" Sebastian called my name from behind, but he didn't follow me, because the door to room 1019 opened, and someone was calling for him. "Sebastian, the wedding is about to start. Chapter 11. I dashed into the fire escape, and the sounds from the hallway faded away. I kept running, rushing wildly without knowing where to go. I didn't know how long I had been running before I tripped, tumbling down the stairs and landing awkwardly on a corner platform. My palms were scraped, my arms bruised, and my knees were bleeding. Slowly, I knelt on the floor, cradling my hand as I muttered to myself, "Sebastian, it hurts so much." A warm, rough hand suddenly opened my palm, and above me, Sebastian's familiar voice sounded, both caring and scolding. "Idiot. Why are you running?" He gently wiped the dust off my palm, his actions soft but his words tough. "It's just a stupid bracelet. If it's lost, then it's lost. Who cares? As long as I'm still alive, no one can bully you. Got it? Why are you acting so scared? I'm not there to wipe away your tears, so you're not allowed to cry. I looked up, about to retort, I wasn't crying, but then I froze at the sight of the empty stairwell. The dust still covered the wound on my palm, though now it was also smeared with moisture. I raised my hand and wiped my face, my fingers coming away wet. The tears I had been holding in for 5 years broke through like a flood. The pain in my chest was so sharp that my teeth chattered, and suddenly I coughed up blood. Over the past 5 years, I had buried my father, said goodbye to my mother, and wandered alone in a foreign land. I had survived only by clinging to one belief, that Sebastian was waiting for me. How could he not wait for me? Today is your wedding day. I can't cry. I was crying and laughing at the same time, wiping my tears as I muttered to myself. Suddenly, without warning, someone approached me from behind and carefully handed me a piece of white fabric. I'm sorry, are you all right? It was the bride's veil. Chapter 12. I followed the trail of the veil upwards, and there I saw a radiant, glowing face, curved crescent eyebrows, clear almond-shaped eyes, and even without the bridal makeup, she was already sweet and pretty enough, just like in the novels. I don't have any tissues. You should take care of your wound as soon as possible, Julia explained apologetically, then handed me the veil. I don't need it. You can use it for now. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. Any words would seem meaningless. You must be very sad right now. I understand. No, maybe I can't understand. I've never lost a loved one like you. Seeing no reaction from me, Julia took my hand. Especially since you lost someone like Sebastian. Someone like him, Julia sighed, shaking her head, and gently brushed away the sand from my palm with a corner of the veil. As if afraid of hurting me, she blew softly on the wound. Even though it's not my fault, I still want to say, I'm sorry. These past few years must have been hard for you, right? Sebastian said he dreamed of you. He dreamed of you coughing up blood. Did you also encounter a lot of danger? Danger? It was more than that. To come back. I died 27 times. Just 7 days ago. I was punished for trying to return to the country and ended up in the emergency room. At that time, I thought I was surely going to die. But hearing Julia's words now, the only thing I focused on was the word also. What did Sebastian go through? I lost control and grasped Julia's hand through the veil, looking at her in desperation. I finally asked the question I had always wanted to ask but never dared. Will he ever come back? Chapter 13. In truth, I had expected this all along. 5 years of silence, and I, a mere bystander, had gone through so much hardship. Sebastian, as the main character, if he were to resist fate, would surely have suffered more. I once harbored a glimmer of hope, but when I received that message saying Sebastian was getting married, I received the final judgment from fate. My Sebastian was gone. I lingered outside the hotel, too afraid to go in, constantly thinking that if I didn't show up, maybe I could pretend that Sebastian was still here. When I saw the stalk of wheat on the moon, that hope returned, but when I saw Sebastian's eyes in the hotel hallway, I fell into hell completely. That man was not my Sebastian. 10 years ago, after reading that book, Sebastian had angrily retorted, that person could never be me. His words had come true. Now, that person really wasn't him anymore. Where had my Sebastian gone? I didn't dare ask. I wanted to pretend that he was still Sebastian. I wanted to pretend that Sebastian had just fallen out of love. I wanted to pretend that Sebastian was still alive. But I collapsed. And in my illusions, I saw Sebastian again, like grasping the last straw. I hoarsely asked again, will Sebastian ever come back? Julia paused, pursed her lips, and looked at me with pity before sighing softly. He's waiting for you at the end of time. I froze, and suddenly a sharp voice came from the top of the stairs. Julia! Chapter 14. The male protagonist stood on the stairs. His face was hidden in the darkness. His gaze swept over me and quickly landed on Julia. The wedding is about to start. We should go. Julia rolled her eyes and ignored him. See? The type of guy I've been running plotlines with for the past few years. He plays his role perfectly but is actually cold and ruthless. Nothing like your Sebastian. Sebastian didn't betray you. On the contrary, Julia. Enough. The male protagonist descended the stairs, his face cold in a way Sebastian would never be. What are you so angry about? It's just a few words. You won't die from it. A trace of blood appeared at the corner of Julia's mouth, but she casually wiped it away and stood up. Maybe dying would be better. I never wanted to take on these hellish tasks that tear apart lovers. How many times has it been now? The male protagonist grabbed the veil from her hand, balled it up, and stuffed it into her mouth without expression. MMMPH. Julia's eyes widened in shock. Frozen in place, the male protagonist crouched down, placed a pair of shoes next to her, and gently patted her calf through the wedding dress. Are you going to put them on yourself? Or should I help you? It was only then that I noticed Julia had run barefoot, dressed in her heavy wedding gown, to find me. Julia quickly shoved her feet into the shoes, grumbling. Before she could explode in anger, the male protagonist suddenly turned to me and asked, "How did you figure it out? How did I know he wasn't Sebastian?" I stared blankly at that familiar face and smiled softly. I didn't need to see. Love is an unexplainable intuition. He nodded, and then, out of nowhere, muttered, "The sixth time." Chapter 15. I didn't understand. It seemed that both he and Julia couldn't reveal certain truths. Otherwise, they would face punishment from the world's consciousness. But his words, "the sixth time," seemed to follow Julia's earlier comment. How many times has it been now? What did it mean? What had Sebastian been through all these years? This wedding is part of the plot, but it's also something he left for you. The male protagonist suddenly took the small wheat-shaped brooch from his suit and handed it to me. If you want to know what he left behind, see for yourself. With that, he stood up, his face emotionless. David, you. Julia let out a surprised cry, but David quickly covered her mouth. Let's go. Time to get married. He dragged Julia up the stairs, disappearing into the darkness. All I could hear was Julia's cry. I'm not marrying you. Ah, why are you coughing up blood? I looked down at the small wheat brooch in my hand, and my vision blurred. This wedding had originally been planned for me by Sebastian, 5 years ago. Not long after we graduated from university, he had already been quietly preparing for our wedding. He would always hide in the study, scribbling on paper, refusing to show me. The night before I left for abroad, I kept pestering him to tell me more. If you see it, there won't be any surprise left. After much pleading, Sebastian finally relented a little and revealed, Fine, I'll tell you this. The theme is based on the title of a book. The rest you'll have to guess. Even though Sebastian always called me Autumn or Wheat, I guessed it might be Neruda's Roses, Yu Guangzhong's Moon, or Leighton Brando's Galaxy. But I never guessed that the theme of the wedding would be wheat. What's romantic about cheap wheat compared to roses? Only now did I understand what Sebastian had been referencing. It was probably love and wheat mature together by the rural pastor. I gripped the brooch tightly in my palm, the pain from the wound in my hand intensifying. In the next moment, I suddenly noticed a tiny piece of paper hidden behind the brooch clasp. My heart raced as I quickly unfolded it, revealing just 5 words. Trash can. 10th floor. Chapter 16. I pulled a diary out of the trash bin. The pages were yellowed, the edges curled, as if someone had flipped through it countless times. Like some silent declaration, the cover of the diary boldly read, Male lead, Sebastian. Female lead, Autumn. My hands trembled as I opened to the first page, where familiar, arrogant handwriting greeted me. It was a brief preface. To 17-year-old Autumn. Autumn. This is Sebastian at 17. Today, we read a random romance novel, and it used my name, which made me really angry, even though you promised me you wouldn't believe anything written in that book. And you also promised that if I ever messed up, you'd come and steal me away. But it's now 3 in the morning, and I can't stop thinking about it, tossing and turning in bed. Okay. I'm still sulking. I'm a petty person. I hate this cruel joke from fate. I hate that it cast you as just a supporting character in my story. And I hate its plot. It's ridiculous. Does it think it's the only one who can write stories? I'm so mad. So, I'm going to write my own book. A book that's only about the two of us. From school to wedding. From 17 to 97. A beautiful story where we love each other and never part. I want this book to be written by me and my wheat classmate. And I plan to spend my whole life writing it. So, I have to ask, wheat classmate, will you be my female lead? After a long pause, at the bottom of the page, there were some hasty, messy scribbles. What am I writing? Am I proposing? Isn't it way too early at 17? Autumn definitely won't believe I'm serious. Okay. I can wait. Wait until we're a bit older. Until wheat matures. Autumn. I won't go back on my word. But, I turned the page, and the first thing I saw was a sentence written by 22-year-old Sebastian. Autumn. I'm sorry. I'm afraid I'm going to have to break my promise. Chapter 17. Today is the third day since you left, and I still can't reach you. I sent people to the hospital address you gave, but it's like all information about you vanished into thin air. No one can find you. I want to go look for you, but it feels like there's someone else living in my body. I don't know what he's done with my body, but after you left, my thoughts became jumbled. My memory's blurry. Am I going mad? If I go mad, I won't be able to marry you. And then you absolutely have to forgive me. Autumn. No, wait. Forgiving me would mean you don't care. So Autumn, you mustn't forgive me. Look at me. I must really be sick. I'm talking in circles. Mom just came to bring me my medicine. That's when I realized I was wrong. It's already been 10 days since you left. Chapter 18. Autumn. I met that Julia. She started as an intern at the company, and on her first day, she spilled coffee all over my suit. Such a cliché opening. Of course, I made her pay the cleaning fee and banned her from ever entering my office again. But weirdly, in the blink of an eye, she somehow became my assistant. It must be the work of that other person inside me. Autumn. I'm so mad, but I can't get rid of him. Autumn. Please come into my dreams and comfort me. At least let me know if you're safe. Chapter 19. Autumn. You used to ask me every year what my birthday wish was. I didn't want to tell you because I was afraid that saying it out loud would make it not come true. But now, I really want you to know. Every year, my birthday wish has been the same. When the wheat ripens, I want to marry my Autumn. I really want you to know. Maybe the Sebastian in that book proposed to the heroine 5 times. But your Sebastian, from 17 to 22, has wished for only one thing. And that is you. Until today, when I'm about to celebrate my 23rd birthday. Forgive me, but this year I've changed my birthday wish. If you want to know what my new wish is, come back and ask me soon. If you don't come back, I don't know how much longer I can wait. All right, I'll leave my wish here for you to read, just in case. I hope any passing gods will turn a blind eye and grant me this favor. Sebastian's 23rd birthday wishes for Autumn to be safe. Chapter 20. Autumn. Don't blame Mom. Every time I wanted to go see you, I got sick. And it got worse each time. I had a severe car accident on my way to the airport, and it terrified her. She started to think of Julia as my miracle cure. So don't blame her. Chapter 21. Autumn. I had a dream today. I dreamed of the first day of our second year in high school, and instead of sitting next to me, you sat in the front row, but I still noticed you right away. You always sat there alone, reading, never smiling or talking, like an icy stalk of wheat. So adorable. I called you wheat, and you still gave me that same look, like I was a fool. I liked it, couldn't help but laugh. You know the rest of the story. I still ended up falling for wheat. Isn't it strange? It was so easy for me to notice you and be drawn to you. But why didn't I notice you at all in our first year? Heaven must have played some trick on us. But what heaven didn't know, no matter how many times we start over, no matter how our story begins, as long as wheat is there, I'll fall for her, over and over again. Chapter 22. Autumn. I saw you coughing up blood again. David says that because we defied the plot. This is our punishment. I didn't know you were fighting to reach me too. I should be happy, but the thought of you suffering takes all my joy away. Mom can't even tell the difference between me and David anymore, and that's probably for the best. But sometimes I wonder, can you tell that he's not me? I want you to know, but at the same time, I hope you don't. 5 years. I really want to see you again, but it looks like I'm running out of time. You've been taken to the ER. The plot is almost over, and the world's consciousness is forcing me to make a choice. What a joke. Doesn't it already know? From the very beginning, there was only one choice for me, and that's you. But forgive me, Autumn. I'm afraid I'm going to leave you behind. Forgive me. I can't make it to our wedding. At the end of the diary, one messy line after another trailed off. The sentences no longer complete. It looked like a gravely ill person, holding an uncooperative pen, trying to write, yet unable to keep going. From the scrawls, I barely managed to piece together Sebastian's last words. Seeing this letter is seeing me. I hope my Autumn lives a long life, with peace and safety every year. I held the diary close, curled up next to the trash can, and finally broke down crying. Sebastian, oh Sebastian, if I had a chance to take you away, whether you were insane, completely changed, lost your memory, or fell out of love, no matter which version of you, as long as there was even the slightest chance, I would have become the villain to take you away. But, Sebastian, you didn't tell me that my opponent was fate. You didn't tell me. When I lost you completely, how could I hold on to someone who no longer exists? I'm so useless. All I can do is helplessly and desperately beg again and again. Please, God, give me back my Sebastian. Chapter 23. I don't know how long I cried. I only knew my heart hurt so much. The pain pulling me into darkness. I wanted to sleep. Suddenly, I heard a sigh from the hallway. If I'd known you'd cry this much, I wouldn't have written the diary. In a daze, I opened my eyes and, in a blur, I saw Sebastian again. He crouched in front of me, his eyebrows furrowed, looking at me with deep affection as he coaxed. Autumn, be good. Stop crying. We'll meet again. I stared at him for a moment before letting out a sudden, weak laugh. You're not real. Sebastian, you're trying to trick me. Sebastian followed with a helpless smile, one that looked more like crying. Today is the 7th day since my death. I'm real. I came back to see my Autumn. It's my fault. I made my Autumn wait too long. I was never one to act spoiled. But in front of Sebastian, I always became a bit more needy. When he apologized, I couldn't help feeling even more aggrieved. You promised you'd wait for me to come back. Today should have been our wedding. How could you leave me all alone? It's my fault. Sebastian reached out to touch my face but stopped just before his hand made contact. I bit my lip sadly, and before he could pull away, I leaned my cheek into his hand. Sebastian smiled gently. Next time, Autumn. Next time I'll marry you early. I won't wait until I'm 22. Will there really be a next time? Yes, it's what this world owes me. Sebastian pretended to pinch my cheek, though he didn't actually touch me. But until the next time comes, Autumn, you have to live well, live happily, live a long, long life. If something happens to you, the world will blame me. And what if it doesn't give me a chance to come back? I thought Sebastian was trying to trick me into staying alive. But even if there's only a 1 in a million chance, even if all of this is a lie, how could I dare refuse him? Sebastian, you're so cruel to me. I'm sorry. Autumn, please stop crying. You haven't figured out the theme of this wedding yet, have you? I hid the answer in the wheat stalks by the banquet hall wall. Get up and take a look, okay? I wanted to say I already knew. I didn't want to get up, didn't want to go look. But when I saw the plea and weakness in Sebastian's eyes, I understood in an instant. I stared at Sebastian, looking at his eyebrows, his eyes, inch by inch, unwilling to let go. It felt like a century had passed, but also like it was only a moment. I wiped my tears, stood up, and forced a smile. All right, I'll go. Chapter 24. The wedding had already begun. I drifted into the banquet hall like a ghost through the side door, unnoticed by anyone. On stage, the bride and groom stood facing each other, and the groom was about to give his wedding vows. From the corner of the room, in the decorated area, I spotted a stalk of wheat with a small moon hanging from it. The tip of the moon was attached to a string, and at the end of the string hung a card. I turned over the card, and finally saw the answer that Sebastian had hidden 5 years ago. It was a letter, quoting from Wang Xiaobo's writings. The wheat has ripened. The days are hot. Tomorrow morning, I will go harvest it. My love has ripened too, and my heart burns with heat. I hope, dear wheat, that you will be the one to reap it. My hands trembled as I clenched the card, and suddenly, the sound of microphone feedback echoed in my ears. I abruptly turned around and looked toward the stage. In that moment, it was as if I saw the vibrant young Sebastian standing there, with that bold, carefree smile on his lips. His gaze pierced through the noisy crowd and landed solely on me. He was speaking to me. I want to offer you my open heart, along with the fields of wheat I've tended, the ripened grains, and my small, humble self. I want to give it all to you. Will you accept it? My dear wheat. Everything seemed to return to the beginning of the story. In the library, when we were 17, Sebastian and I opened that book together. That night, Sebastian was so angry that he hid under his blanket, trying to write me into his story as the female lead. He couldn't finish it in a lifetime, but from the very beginning, he had already written our story. It was a book. The title of the book was Loving You is Like Loving Life. Chapter 25. When I was 17, I fell in love with a boy named Sebastian. He said that when the wheat ripened, he would bring the harvest and marry me. When I was 22, before the wheat could ripen, I left the country. In the bustling airport, I told him to wait for me to return. At 27, I came back. I came back to tell him, Sebastian, I'm ready. I came back to attend his funeral.